All right. Hi, Marci. Welcome to Coding Chats with Callie. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So we weren't recording before, but I've had like quite a bit of technical difficulties. So I'm very sorry about that. Thank you for bearing with me through like 15 minutes of trouble.
Of course, I was afraid my microphone wouldn't work. Every time I try to do a Zoom with my doctor, that microphone is like not working, and end up having to get on the phone and talking. So,
Oh my
just
gosh, I feel like that's happened to me too.
yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to interview you because I just love reading your posts on LinkedIn. I love
Oh,
that
thank
you're building
you.
in public, and I really love that you're building with Python and like you're
Uh-huh.
doing some cool stuff with web scraping that I just don't see a lot of junior developers doing. So I guess let's just back all the way up to
Okay.
why did you decide to learn to code? What were you doing? Kind of what started this whole journey.
Okay. Let's see. So back, I was in marketing for a very long time with the same company, and the company sold. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't think I wanted to do that again. And so I decided to kind of look around. In order to get a job, I just started bartending. I knew I wasn't going to go straight into that industry again. And that's why, because people are always questioning, why are you bartending? Number one, I love it. Number two, it was money fast. I got a job very quickly. I didn't have to worry about spending the money that I got from the
Totally,
sale of
yeah.
business. Yeah, so I did that. And I was watching CBS Mornings, and Sebastian Thrun, who is the founder of Udacity, he helped invent the self-driving car and Google Glasses. And he
Cool.
was a professor at Cornell. I think I got that right. He was discussing, he's from Germany, and he was discussing learning to code and starting Udacity, and how he wanted to have people um, have a better education with for less money. And so I
Yeah.
thought, oh, okay, that sounds great. So what is coding? So I Googled like a CS class, and what popped up was a Harvard class from like 2007 with David Mallon, who still teaches the CS50 class.
Okay.
And it was the introductory lecture, and he was talking about ones and zeros and how a computer works with ones and zeros. Everything that we see is basically yes or no, on or off. And I was like, wait, what? That's magic. I've got to learn more about this.
Oh, I love this so much. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So that's how I got started. So I started with Udacity. I did their intro to computer science class. And then I did their intro to HTML and CSS class. And then I did their intro to Python class. And then I did the CS50 class with David Mellon, who I think I developed a little bit of a crush on. I don't know. He just is so wonderful at explaining everything.
You're kind of selling me on it. Should I take it?
It's fun. Oh, you do so well at it. It's interesting because it taught me more about C. They start with C. Well, they start with Scratch actually. So
Oh, okay,
just
cool.
teaching you like, yeah, loops and if and else and all of that. And then they move on to C, and you're in C for a few weeks, but it's with training wheels. So like they have all the things that help you compile and stuff. And then they switched to Python, and then Python to SQL to web programming. So I did that one twice just because honestly, I didn't understand everything at first. And
I love that.
I keep, I want like to be able to, in my brain with a computer, you have to understand what's going on underneath the hood in the computer, but
Yeah.
also what the structure looks like and what the code is doing. And so I felt, okay, I'm not there yet. I need to keep doing this. And so I've retaken some of the Udacity stuff too, just for reviews, just to like get me where I need to be. And then let's see, I kind of took a little bit of a break, just kind of got like, what do I do next? That's the problem. You get from beginner to kind of intermediate, and you don't
Yeah.
know, how do I get a job? Where do I go? And I did talk to this kind of career coach, and he gave me great advice, but it wasn't advice I was ready to hear at the time. And
What was
so
the advice?
make a project.
Oh, yeah. That's funny because that's literally always my advice to people too. It's
Make a
funny.
project. But I didn't understand because I didn't have that way to go. And that's one thing that I didn't love about Udacity, was that it wasn't like, it didn't give you a chance to make the project. Now that, don't get me wrong, they have definitely development classes where you can do that. But what I was taking, you were, it wasn't quite like that.
It was more like theoretical.
Theoretical. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so you did make a couple of things, but it wasn't a project by any means. And so I kind of just took took the time off, and I wasn't uninterested. I just wasn't inspired, I guess. And then in the beginning of the year, I don't know what made me join. I just thought I need a network. I know I need to do that. So let me get on LinkedIn and let me, and I researched women like professional organizations. I kind of did some meetups, looking at meetups, and I found women who code.
Oh,
And I
nice.
joined, yeah,
Wow.
which I know, they
I was like, nice at the time.
really, like literally I onboarded to be a volunteer, and then like 3 weeks later I get a message in Slack that they've canceled the
Oh
whole
my goodness.
organization.
What was the like how intense was this onboarding process?
I mean, it was just a little bit of time. I mean,
Okay. But
it was,
still.
yeah, exactly. And I made some really great connections. So I did this 60-day challenge, which was just incredible. It really got me back to coding and coding every day and sort of trying to post on LinkedIn, but I was so nervous about it. Oh my gosh. Like,
Okay, I have so many questions. So tell me,
okay,
what
sorry.
is the 60-day challenge first off?
Okay, it was one every day you had a coding challenge that they would post in a Slack message. And then
Okay.
you were to go and do that. And then you needed to be accountable. You shared your code in the chat for that day.
Okay,
And
I love that.
yeah, and so that I loved because you could go and see everybody else's, because usually you would just post it from GitHub, and there was a nice little, you could see the code and it was formatted. It looked great. And so you could see what everybody else was doing and learn and see who was, because Python is supposed to be clean and very Pythonic, and, use the shortest amount of code that you can to do what you need to do. And so it was cool to see who was using map properly, or who was using a for loop, or who was doing a lot of code, or sometimes I would do, I knew she was going to do that. Let me just grab her and let her in.
No, you're good. Yeah. I love the doggies.
Okay, let's hope that that's good enough for her. So, anyways, where was I?
The 30 or 60-day challenge
Yeah,
and
so
looking at people's code.
yeah, so we would read people's code, and sometimes I would take the challenge and I would do 4 different ways to do it. So I would do recursion, I would do a for loop, I would do some kind of built-in method for Python, or I'll use a library.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I feel
Yeah.
like you should like, I don't know if you know this, I hope you do, but like I just don't feel like people like do this. I feel like I hear so many people like, well, watch something and not get it and then give up. I love that I'm hearing that you're like, oh, if I don't get it the first time, I'm just gonna redo it. And then I love
Yeah.
too, you're like, I don't need to just know how to do this one way. I'm gonna do it 4 ways. That's perfect.
Absolutely. It centers the knowledge in my brain. I don't know if it's how I learn or what, but I definitely need to keep reviewing it and keep doing it. And I find, like they say, practice makes perfect. And I agree with that 100%. I mean, I just need to, that's what I do. I just practice, practice, practice. However, whether I'm doing a hackathon or a coding challenge, or if I just feel like I need to feel proficient in something, like I'm learning JavaScript right now.
How's it
And
going?
it's going. It's just like not a number and undefined, and those things are kind of confusing to me. So, but it's syntactically, obviously, it's different. But once you know a programming language and you understand data structures and how the computer works, I think that the language is just kind of a little bit of syntactical sugar, as David Malin used to say. He liked to say syntactic sugar all the time. But it's syntax and learning the methods, and going to the docs and seeing what you can do with different methods and so on. So I like it.
I love it.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. So, okay, you're doing the 60-day challenge. What made you decide to start posting on LinkedIn? You said you were nervous. How'd you get through that?
Okay, so I just wanted to network, and I wanted to grow my connections, and I had gotten some advice from Brian Jenny. Actually, he has a school Parsity
Yep.
boot camp, and
I've never spoken to him, but I see him all the time on LinkedIn.
He's
So I'm
so
like,
cool.
I'm pretending I know him.
Yeah, I love his podcasts. They're great. I love listening to a podcast about coding. I could do that all day long. So that's how I found his podcast, and I found his school, and I started to do the Dev 30 challenge, and they talk about learning in public. It's really important about learning in public and then growing your network. And so he said, get to 500 connections. That's like the most important thing, because then people don't know how many connections you have, right? And so I was like, okay, that sounds good to me. So I think I had like 126 or 106, and I just kept going and going until I got to 500. But I was choosing computer people. So like I said, I wanted to grow my network, and I'm not job hunting quite yet, but I definitely want to network with people that are like-minded, and I've found that so far. I think I've got a little over 1,000 followers now, and
Yay.
I know, and I'm grateful for each of them, and I really like just knowing that my network is expanding, and that when it comes time to look for a job, that people will know me. And so I just getting over it was just literally, the first time you post to YouTube, nobody knows that you're there unless you've got a great SEO and you've got
Yeah.
people, followers, whatever, you're just posting to nobody. And you've got to let the algorithm kind of pick it up, and the algorithm cracks me up, because I still don't know how it works, what it likes better. It seems to like my posts about when I'm bartending, but those seem to have gotten the most impressions. But I just decided to put it out there and just talk about what I was doing, and taking that advice from Brian and Jenny, that learning in public is important and growing your network is important. So I'm a social person, but I'm not a social person. I can be just as comfortable at home without talking to anybody. But I find that I really like the LinkedIn community. It's fun and you learn stuff, and it's comforting, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Yeah. Do you have people in your real life that code? Because I feel like I love it because I don't know anyone in real life that codes. So I kind of feel like I have my people a little bit
Exactly.
around me online. And it's it's
Yeah.
really nice to have that community.
Absolutely. That's why when I'm bartending, I try to find people who code. I know it's I get teased because I'm like, how do you find a software engineer? I'm like, it's just a vibe. So I'll either start talking about
Okay,
what
yes,
I'm
I need to
doing.
know this. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
So I'll either start talking about what I'm doing, like they'll say, hey, how are you doing? And I'll be like, oh, you know what, honestly, I'm a little tired. And they'll say, why? And I'll say, oh, I was up coding last night or whatever. And so I'll kind of start the conversation off that way and get to be able to talk to other software engineers. So that's really just a very brief interaction in the real world versus being able to have this community on LinkedIn is amazing. Like just people understand the learning the learning process, and knowing that I'm not alone, that things don't just naturally, some people they naturally come to, but binary search trees, they're once you get advanced there, it can be very tricky, and trying to understand how that's going, how that works is tough. So
I think you're going to be great because I can already tell from the brief time that we chatted. The most important thing, in my opinion, is knowing how to learn and knowing how you specifically learn, because you just never stop learning in this industry. There's never going to be a point where you're like, ah, yes, I'm there. I know everything. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think the biggest skill, and I'm pretty new to the industry too, but I think the biggest skill that I've noticed is that I'm successful because I know how to figure things out. And just from
Right.
hearing talk, I feel like you know how to figure
Well,
things out
thank you.
too.
That makes me feel good, especially coming from someone with your background in education and learning and development. That makes me feel good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So what does job ready look like? You said you're not ready to look yet. How do you know when you're ready? And yeah, what kind of
That's a
jobs
good
would you look for?
question. I've gotten some advice that don't take yourself off the market before it's time, or
Okay.
which is, so you, all right, sorry, hold on, let me
No,
just
you're
fix
good.
Luna. Go. Sorry, they did that to me in an interview last fall, and it was I was like, I've got to let my dog out. So anyways, I'll just let the gate open. They can do what they want.
Sometimes my dog does it to me when I'm in a one-on-one with my boss and I'm wearing
Oh,
pajama pants, and I'm like, this
oh
is really
no.
awkward because the door's right there. So now
You can see him
do
wearing
I turn my
pajama
camera
pants.
off to stand up?
Luna
I
wanted
wear
to be part of this
PJs.
conversation.
Yeah.
That's oh, hello. That's Duffy just came in. Okay, so we were talking about
Job ready. How do you know?
job readiness. Okay, so he said don't take yourself off the market, and don't say that you're not ready when you're judging for somebody else
I
else
agree.
can think that
Yes.
you are ready, right? But I want to be a little bit firmer in data structures and algorithms. I feel like I'm kind of okay. I mean, I feel like I'm good at those, but I could be better. And what else? I want my own website up and running in my portfolio. So like the web scraper, the hackathons that I've done. I'll be doing something with you in August, and I want to have that. That I feel like October, after October is when I'm going to be shooting for that. So just having more, a set portfolio, and having a better stack of languages, that Luna, no. Sorry.
She's like, I want to code too.
I want to code. She's just standing there barking at like nothing. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give myself through the end of October to like really get situated and become more of a full stack developer.
Okay.
And yeah, and
Is that where you see yourself going as full stack development? Because I hear a lot of data-y things in what you're saying.
yeah, not exactly. I kind of like the back end a lot, and I love to do the data. Oh God, let me just.
Okay, I'll pause too here.
Okay,
So
okay.
I recording again.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. Okay, so dog troubles for sure. So I love the web scraping. I got into that. That's kind of like the data and all of that. I got into that. I used to work for Standard & Poor's when I first graduated from college. I was a financial analyst. And so I'm looking on their job boards for jobs, and they had one for Python for a web scraper. And I thought, oh my gosh, what's web scraping? So I set out to learn that, and made a few scrapers since then. And it's a really fascinating technology. And because I worked at Standard & Poor's, I really am into data, and I have my undergraduate degree is in finance.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a lot of fits there, but I don't know that I want to go the data analyst route. So
all right. Well, this is perfect because tonight our guest on the Coding with Callie meetup is a data engineer.
Oh,
she's
no way.
Talking all about it, and she's actually the one who introduced me to web scraping, and she's like a data savant. So
that'll be amazing.
So yeah, I just feel like something's in the air that
yes,
you and I are talking, and then she's about to talk in 19 minutes.
Perfect. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, are we getting closer? Okay, we've got some time still.
We're good though.
Okay.
Okay, so I saw on your LinkedIn too that you're also doing a master's in computer science.
That is on hold.
That is on hold.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. Yes.
What was the decision in terms of like self-learning versus degree versus boot camp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So, God, I got to take that down. I kind of think I forgot that was up there because on my thing, it only shows my undergraduate degree. So,
oh yeah, I've stalked you before this.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Perfect. I've gone back and forth about doing the boot camp, and because I'm mostly self-taught, I did the Udacity stuff. It just didn't seem to fit financially. It's a big shell out, and
I'm still paying off my loan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I know that that you guys learn so much and do so much in the full stack environment, and you learn Git, you learn with working with people, which is why I'm doing the hackathon so that I can get that kind of experience. But they don't work with my schedule. I have a pretty good schedule. I basically bartend Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during the day, and I bartend Monday night, and I manage Tuesday night. So it's set in sync with a lot of the people where I work. They've had the same schedule. So it's not like I can say, hey, will you switch me Sunday and Monday? Because chances are they won't. So most of the boot camps that I looked into just didn't work with that. So that's why I was thinking, okay, well, getting a master's would be a great idea. And I still will get a master's. It's just not going to be as soon as I thought it would be. So,
okay.
And I think that's just because I love to learn. And so I want to learn more and know the things that can help you invent a self-driving car, like the more education. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I go on to get a PhD just because I want to, But
and I think that's why you're going to be successful in this industry. Cause I think that's what it is all day, every day is just like learning. And the more curious you are, I think the better.
Yeah. I mean, if you could see my YouTube, like I just go on there and when just for my fun time, like my when I'm kind of trying to just relax, I go and I look at different things, like explain how this works, explain how that works, just so I can have kind of an idea. I'm just curious. Yeah.
I
So, and
love
it
that.
gives me dopamine. So especially, coding gives me dopamine, solving the problems, finding the errors, fixing the bugs, that gives me dopamine. And I have ADHD. So we're always looking for dopamine when you have ADHD. So
Oh,
this is like,
interesting.
yeah, for sure. That's some of the, remember I said I need to go grab something to like play with, to fidget with.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things is you're always trying to stimulate like the dopamine. And so I snap a lot. I just
Okay.
do certain things just to give those, I call them stims. That's kind of the
Yeah.
word in the ADHD community. So
Oh,
dopamine
nice.
definitely, yeah, they say replace scrolling with coding. So
Yes,
like,
I love that. And that's actually kind of how I got into it too, is I was a stay-at-home mom and I was scrolling like Instagram all day
mhm.
while my daughter was playing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a ridiculous waste of time.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
I'm not even being a good mom, let alone like not doing anything, you know? So yeah, that's what I did. I was like, I'm just gonna learn how to code instead. And then I was like
I love
quickly
that.
like even worse of a mom because I wasn't paying any attention to my kid.
Oh,
So
how old are your kids?
I just have one and she is 3 and a few months.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I very quickly got obsessed with coding and then went to a coding boot camp and she went to daycare and it worked out better for everybody. I'm
Oh,
not
that's
to stay
perfect.
at home.
Yeah, I think you're a better mom when you have other things to fill your time as opposed to just your children.
For
So
sure. Do you have any
yeah.
kids?
I don't. I just have dogs. So I just made the decision early on that I wasn't going to have kids, and I didn't have that maternal tug. I had it once, like 10 years ago when I held a baby, and I was like, well, that's a little bit late. Um, showing up a little late. So I decided, yeah, it wasn't in the plan. So and I'm always surprised when people have kids. I don't know, not that doesn't sound right. I meant like when, like the gal that is heading the hackathon that I'm doing, like she's like, oh, and I my two kids. I'm like, gosh, like how does she do all this? How do parents even
Yeah.
cope? You guys amaze me. Like I have such admiration that
No,
you can
I feel that
do
way
all
about people with more than one. Like
this. Yeah, I bet.
you had one. And like here's the thing. I had one because it was COVID and I was like, what else is there to do?
Yeah.
You know? But then it's like you have the one and you realize what having one is like. I don't understand how people have two. Like one, you're like, you don't know any
Imagine.
better, you know?
Yeah,
Two,
yeah,
you
but
know
two,
better.
you know what's happening. You can't just guarantee this one's going to be like all smooth sailing. Like the next one's going to be quiet and good. Like forget
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I say that a lot when I'm working. If they'll say something about their kids, I'm like, oh, I don't have kids. I don't mean to brag or anything, but
I love that. I'm actually very envious because I thought for most of my life, I thought I was gonna not have any children. I'm glad I do, but
yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, wouldn't
I
change
think
it
it would
for the
have been
world.
a happy choice either way. So
Oh,
I
for sure.
think it's
Yeah.
very awesome that you chose not to and you're like diving into coding instead and your life and bartending. That's very cool.
Yeah, I get to choose what I want to do. And I think my goal is to when I was younger, I lived in Germany. My dad was in the Air Force and he was stationed in Germany. And so I've always wanted to live there or work remotely. So my goal is to eventually have a remote job where I can just travel. So
Oh,
my
that'd be
parents,
awesome.
yeah, my parents will watch the dog, and because I watch their dog when they travel, they have a little Airstream and they're constantly on. So I'm
Oh,
always
cute.
watching their dog. Yeah. So I figured that would be a good trade off, and I can just travel and code and be a happy camper.
Nice. So what
Yeah.
are you working on now and what's the decision to behind learning JavaScript?
Okay. So I go back, like I said, I've gone back and forth about learning JavaScript, but I want to have the ability to be a full stack developer and gosh, this sounds kind of lame, but to be able to post some cool projects, to be able to the front part of it, like, cause you can't see, all I can show you is like, this is what's happening on my terminal. Like I did a hackathon and I created,
It's really cool, I promise.
I know I created an AI uh, uh, interaction. That's not the word. Uh,
Chatbot?
no, not a chatbot. Well, yeah, a chatbot basically, but it wasn't hooked up from the back end to the front end. We just didn't have time. And then I did a quiz too that was really cool, but that didn't get connected. So it's like, oh, I want to be able to do those things and understand the front end. And I understand the relationship, but like how how you pull the data and how it gets called from the front end to the back end. All of that is really, I'm just very curious about it. And so obviously JavaScript's the way to go. I think it was the #1 language on Slack. And I figure if I have JavaScript and TypeScript and then, trying to learn AWS and Lambda and Docker, and we're doing Docker with my hackathon right now. I just feel like those will give me better opportunities. When you go to look at those job descriptions, they're very long. They're, you need to know this, and this. And so I feel like the more that I know, and the more that I can put on my portfolio with my projects, the better off I'll be. So,
well, I think you would love deployment because I think you and I are very similar in how we learn. And there's just nothing that gives you more dopamine than
really,
figuring out a deployment. Yeah, because
that's
it's
what
so
you're doing
hard
today,
that
right?
it's like, what?
Were you doing that today? Or was that yesterday that you were
That
doing
was what I was doing yesterday. So basically, it's taking your code that's on your computer and then
Uh-huh.
putting it in the cloud somewhere so other people can use
Oh,
it. For
very
like the
cool. Yeah.
AWS and Lambda functions and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's kind of what like my area that I like a lot.
Yes,
And yeah, it's just even harder than like, I don't know if harder, but for me it's harder. So it feels like so much cooler when you
for
finally
sure.
nail something and do it.
What languages are you using to do that?
So honestly, like more something like a YAML file or
Okay.
bash.
What is
Um
YAML? I'm going to ask you instead of Googling it. I see.
okay, so YAML is yet another markup language.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
It's kind of like JSON, except
Uh-huh.
different.
Okay.
Just like a different language, but you would use that for like, so like, GitHub, how you
Mhm.
push your code to GitHub. So
Right.
basically what I was working on yesterday when I told you that I was deploying was you push your code to GitHub and then you
Mhm.
have code that's GitHub reads and GitHub will give you a computer. It will launch your code on that computer and run it and then
Oh,
follow
okay.
whatever commands you give it, which I
Oh,
actually think you'll like because if you like Python and like
yeah.
scripting and stuff like that, I think you'd be
Yes, for sure.
bash. So yeah, so you would have a YAML file that has like your bash script in it,
Okay.
being like do
Gotcha.
this. So yeah, that's what I was doing yesterday, and I think
I
you'd
love
be
that.
yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, I would enjoy that. I definitely gravitate towards the back end. I love the business logic and things like that. So, and then, I know JavaScript is really popular. Python is kind of up there too, as far as languages go. And it can do so much and it has so many great libraries and it's such a beautiful, clean language. And I think had I just known Python and not taken that C, I might feel like I might have a bit of a empty or a bit of a learning that I needed to do. But I feel like, of course I have learning I need to do, but I think I
You had the
appreciate.
good foundation.
Yeah, thank you. The foundation, exactly. So learning, I remember learning C and going, okay, a struct, like that's okay. We're making our own data structure, which is like already existing in Python. That's so cool. Like you can make a list. You can, I just thought that was our dictionary, which is called an object in JavaScript. Am I right? A dictionary is an
Yes. To be
okay.
honest, I just learned what a struct was recently because my job, I just got a new job and we use Go, which has structs
Oh,
in it. And I'm not gonna lie, I've asked like I'm like, what is a struct an object? So I kind of feel like now I wish I had your background so that way I
oh,
can
for
have like
sure.
a better understanding. Because in JavaScript, yeah, like you have an array, you have an object, but like you don't
Yeah.
really have a struct.
Yeah. You should, you might want to check out like lecture 1 of CS50,
Okay,
Harvard
I'll write this
CS50, just
down.
Google it. Lecture 1 is kind of interesting. He's a showman, I think. He's a great professor. He's got that big, gorgeous, it's this great building or lecture hall in Harvard,
Okay.
all this wood. And I mean, for during the pandemic, they had their drama department like would do the backgrounds and build puppets. And like, I mean, it's
Cool.
Harvard, like they don't spare any expenses. So,
All
yeah,
right.
it's
Well, don't get
really,
too excited for the coding with Callie workshop because you don't even get my face. You just get my
oh,
voice.
that's okay. That's okay. I think if I'm missing that, I'll just go watch a CS50 lecture. But once you start watching C, it's really interesting. And then my weird thing about me is at night I will have the Roku, and I'll go on Amazon and I'll watch certain like it's my entertainment. I'll watch more like tutorials basically. Isn't that crazy? But I'm hoping to like, if I fall asleep, they'll like go into my head that way by osmosis.
No, don't worry. I do it too. I'll be like, oh
Okay.
crap, it's 11 p.m. I need to go to sleep. But like, I really am into this, whatever
Yeah.
I'm reading. Or lately I've been really into reading over tutorials and watching videos, but the same thing, right? Like I'm just like,
Yeah,
oh
for sure.
crap, it's 11 p.m. How did I code until this late again?
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's amazing how time flies. Yeah, I like books too. I mean, they it's just as explain the why I think a lot better, like why we're doing this. Like I'm watching a tutorial right now on Django, and he's not saying like, okay, because Django is like fully, it's got everything for making a website, front end and back end. I mean, you obviously have to do the HTML and JavaScript and a CSS, but you can do everything with Django and front end, back end, and
Very cool.
yeah, and so it's very particular about the structure. And anybody who watches this, I'm sure I'm going to say some wrong things, but
That's okay.
I wish they would say why. That's the thing that's lacking. Like we're doing it this way, and this is why they have it this way, and maybe they don't know. And reading the docs, depends on, like Mozilla has the best developer docs. Like those are incredible. I love those for learning JavaScript. But some docs aren't that great. So yeah, that's why I prefer books, I think, because they've really done the research they've gone through the docs, they've learned.
Well, yeah, they've spent so much more time preparing than
For
someone
sure.
probably, I'm assuming, that is like filming for a few
Yeah.
minutes.
I would love to write a book someday. Like that would be my
I
goal
would
is,
love to read it.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I would love to write a book and just to explain, because everybody learns differently, to explain things for people who learn the way I do, which whatever way that is, I don't know. But for people who learn that way, I would love to write a book because I think it would just, it'd be fun and be good to just do all the research and get it together. I like to write. So that'd be a pretty good goal, I would say.
Very cool. Well, we have to wrap things up, but is
Okay.
there anything that you want to plug before we end the call?
No, just no, I don't think I have anything I want to plug. I appreciate all the followers and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I don't feel like I'm that interesting, but I had a great
Oh
time.
my
And
gosh, I've had so much fun. I don't actually want to end the call, but I have to go to the
we've
bathroom
got to go
before,
do, yeah,
yeah, our meetup.
what is her name? The gal that we're going to be watching?
Sarah K.
Okay, I can't wait to see that. So I'll see you in a few minutes, I guess. Thank you
All
so much,
right. Thank
Callie.
you so much for joining me.
All right, take care. Bye
Bye.
bye.